A low, resonant hum travels through the soles of my shoes, vibrating up through my ankles before slowly fading into a stillness that feels heavier than the motion itself. The forward momentum that has carried me for hours begins to dissolve, replaced by the hydraulic hiss of brakes engaging, and the final, settling creak of the train carriage adjusting to a halt. Outside the glass, the blur of green and gray solidifies into the concrete pillars of the platform, stationary and waiting. The automatic doors slide open with a pneumatic sigh, inviting the cool, mountain-scented air to mix with the climate-controlled atmosphere of the cabin. I gather my things. The fabric of the seat releases its hold on my coat, and I lift the strap of my bag, feeling the familiar, grounding weight settle onto my shoulder. There is a specific cadence to leaving a train, a collective shuffle of passengers rising in unison. But here, the urgency is muted. People move with a softer intention. I step across the gap between the carriage and the platform, planting my foot on the solid, unmoving ground. Now begins the long, rhythmic journey through the station, a transition space that serves as a bridge between the high-speed travel of the morning and the stillness I seek for the night. My hand finds the telescopic handle of my suitcase, the plastic smooth and cool against my palm. I tilt the case back, engaging the wheels, and they begin their rotation. The sound of the wheels on the platform is a steady, low-frequency rumble. It is a texture you can hear, a vibration that travels up my arm. The floor here is a smooth, poured concrete, painted a neutral gray that absorbs the overhead light. My own footsteps provide a counter-rhythm to the suitcase. The heels of my shoes strike the ground with a dull, muffled click, spaced evenly, one after the other. Left foot, right foot, the suitcase trailing behind like a shadow. I navigate toward the stairs, but then drift toward the elevator to maintain this seamless, gliding pace. The metal doors reflect a distorted image of the concourse, parting to reveal a small, carpeted box. Inside, the sound changes instantly. The rumble of the wheels is silenced by the industrial gray weave of the floor covering. The air is still. A soft chime announces the descent, and for a few seconds, gravity pulls gently at the soles of my feet. When the doors open again, the floor has changed to a polished tile, wide and speckled with flecks of quartz and obsidian. The acoustic profile of the space opens up. It is a cavernous hall, echoing with the distant, indistinct murmur of other travelers and the robotic announcements of track numbers. The wheels of my case find a new voice here, a higher-pitched hum that sings against the hard, glossy surface. I move through the ticket gates. The machine accepts my pass with a quiet beep, the plastic barriers retracting without a sound. Beyond the gates, the The concourse stretches out, a long corridor of light and shadow. I focus entirely on the sensation of movement. There is no need to rush, no need to look at signs. The flow of the architecture guides me. My pace is steady. The weight on my shoulder shifts slightly with each step, a pendulum swinging in time with my stride. I pass beneath vents blowing cool air, and then through patches of warmth where the afternoon sun slants through high windows. The light creates geometric patterns on the floor, bright parallelograms that I step into and out of. Click hum, click hum. The floor texture changes again near the exit. A strip of tactile paving, yellow ridges designed to guide the visually impaired, interrupts the smooth tile. The suitcase wheels chatter over the bumps, a brief, staccato rhythm, before returning to the smooth hum of the polished stone. I watch the floor pass beneath me. It is a landscape of its own, scuffed by thousands of shoes, polished by cleaning machines, a map of transit. Approaching the heavy glass doors that lead to the street, the air pressure shifts. The automatic sensors detect my presence, and the glass panels slide apart. The transition is absolute. The climate-controlled stillness of the station is instantly replaced by the atmosphere of the valley. The air is rich with moisture, carrying the scent of cedar, wet stone, and a faint, underlying trace of sulfur from the thermal vents high in the hills. It is not just a smell, it is a texture, a humidity that settles on my skin, cool and refreshing. I step onto the pavement. The ground here is asphalt, rougher, absorbing the sound of my footsteps. The suitcase wheels rumble with a deeper, throatier tone now, vibrating more intensely in my hand. I move toward the waiting line of vehicles, the visual noise of the town kept at a distance by the mist that clings to the lower slopes. A black taxi waits at the curb, its door opening automatically with a mechanical whir. The interior is laced with white doilies on the headrests, a stark contrast to the dark leather. I lift my bag, the muscles in my arm welcoming the brief exertion, and slide onto the seat. The door closes, sealing out the damp air, creating a new private capsule of silence. The car pulls away, and the rhythm of walking is replaced by the sway of the road. We leave the station behind, winding upwards. The motion is gentle, a side-to-side rocking as the vehicle navigates the switchbacks of the mountain road. Outside the window, the world is a wash of deep, verdant greens. Trees press close to the road, their branches heavy with leaves, creating a tunnel of foliage that filters the light into soft, emerald diffused beams. We pass over a bridge. Below, a river rushes over stones, the white water visible for just a flash before the trees reclaim the view. The sound of the tires on the wet road is a hypnotic hiss, a white noise that wraps around my thoughts and quiets them. I watch the raindrops streak across the glass, tracing erratic paths, merging and separating. The road continues to climb. The engine hums a consistent, low note, never straining, just maintaining a steady ascent. My eyes grow heavy, lulled by the cornering forces that gently push me into the plush upholstery of the seat. We are moving deeper into the mountains, away from the grid of the cities, away from the straight lines of the plains. Here, everything curves. The road, the river, the slopes of the valley. The taxi slows, the tires crunching over gravel as we turn off the main road. The movement changes from the fluid sway of the highway to a slow, careful creep. We come to a halt in front of a low wooden structure, the entrance framed by manicured pines, and a traditional tiled roof that seems to bow under the weight of its own history. I step out into the quiet. It is profound here. The roar of the river is distant now, a background murmur like wind in the trees. The air is cooler than it was at the station, sharper. A gravel path leads to the entrance. My shoes crunch satisfyingly on the small gray stones. I lift my suitcase to carry it, unwilling to break the silence with the sound of wheels on gravel. The bag feels lighter now, or perhaps I am just ready to put it down. At the entrance, the wooden doors slide open. The interior is dim, lit by the warm glow of paper lanterns. The scent of tatami straw and incense greets me, an olfactory signal that the journey is pausing. I step up from the stone entryway onto the wooden floor of the lobby. Here, the ritual of arrival truly begins. I slip off my shoes, placing them side by side. The freedom of my feet in socks against the polished cedar floor is an immediate relief. The wood is smooth, worn soft by decades of travelers, cool but not cold. It feels grounded, solid. I follow the host down a long corridor. The floorboards creak softly, singing with a voice that sounds like age and care. We pass windows that look out onto a moss garden, where stones glisten with moisture. The silence of the hallway is thick, insulating. We stop at a sliding door made of wood and paper. The host kneels, slides it open, and gestures for me to enter. The room is a study in minimalism. There is no clutter, no noise. The floor is covered in tatami mats, the woven rush grass offering a soft, yielding texture underfoot. In the center, a low table sits on a rug. To the side, an alcove displays a single scroll and a small vase with a wild flower. I set my bag down in the corner, finally releasing the handle. My hand feels light, empty. The phantom vibration of the suitcase, wheels slowly fading from my palm. I move to the window and slide the shoji screen aside. The view is of the valley, cloaked in the early evening mist. Somewhere out there, behind the layers of gray and white cloud, is the mountain. I cannot see it yet. There is no conical peak, no snow-capped summit visible this evening, just the suggestion of mass, a darkness in the sky that implies something vast is waiting behind the veil. I turn back to the room. The host has prepared the sleeping area in the adjoining space. I walk over to the futon. It is laid out directly on the tatami, a thick, inviting rectangle of comfort. The duvet is lofty, covered in a crisp white sheet that seems to hold its own light in the dim room. I loosen my clothes, shedding the layers of travel, the coat, the scarf, the structured fabrics of the outside world. I change into the cotton yukata provided, the fabric coarse yet soft against my skin, smelling of starch and clean laundry. The sash ties around my waist, a simple knot that holds everything in place. The room is settling into twilight. The light from the garden lantern outside casts the shadow of a maple branch onto the paper screen, a silhouette that sways gently in the breeze. I approach the bed. The anticipation of rest is physically palpable, a heaviness behind the eyes. I lower myself down, the tatami firm beneath the layers of bedding. I pull back the duvet. The sheets are cool to the touch, smooth and unwrinkled. I lie down. The pillow cradles my head, firm with buckwheat hulls that shift to conform to the shape of my neck. I pull the duvet up to my chin. The weight of it is perfect, heavy enough to feel secure, light enough to allow for deep, unrestricted breaths. I listen. There is the sound of the river, faint and constant. There is the creak of the building, settling as the temperature drops. There is the sound of my own breathing, slowing down to match the pace of the room. My legs, tired from the walk through the station, sink into the mattress. My shoulders drop away from my ears. The tension of the journey, the focus on schedules and tracks and connections, evaporates into the quiet air of the room. I stare up at the ceiling, tracing the grain of the wooden beams in the low light. The desire to see the mountain is still there, a quiet ember of anticipation, but it is not urgent. The mountain has been there for thousands of years. It will be there in the morning. For now, there is only the texture of the cotton sheets against my skin and the scent of the straw mats. I let my eyes close, not forcing them, just allowing the lids to become too heavy to hold up. The darkness behind my eyes is warm and velvety. I let the station fall away in layers. The sound of the announcements fades. The vibration of the train fades. The rhythm of the wheels becomes the rhythm of my breath. In and out. The mist outside seems to wrap around the building, holding it in a soft, damp embrace. I am suspended here, in this valley, between the journey and the destination, floating in the space between waking and sleeping. My hand rests on the cool sheet, fingers uncurled and still. The silence of the room is not empty. It is full of rest, It presses gently against me, a blanket of quiet. I drift, anchored by the comfort of the clean linen and the promise of the mountain waiting in the dawn light. The air in Hakone is not simply atmosphere, it is weight. It is a heavy, humid blanket woven from the steam of volcanic vents and the breath of 1,000 ancient cedars. Standing on the platform at Hakone Station, the moisture settles on my skin, cool and clinging. There is a scent here that does not exist in the city, a mixture of wet stone, river moss, and the faint, sulfurous hint of the boiling earth far beneath our feet. The train that waits for me is painted a deep vermilion red, a color that stands out with startling clarity against the overwhelming wall of green forest that rises immediately behind the station. This is the Tarzan line. It does not look like a machine built for speed. It looks like a creature built for climbing. The wheels are heavy steel, the carriage sits high, and the windows are large, designed to frame the vertical landscape we are about to ascend. I step across the gap and onto the carriage floor. The doors slide shut with a pneumatic sigh, sealing out the noise of the bustling station. Inside, the seats are upholstered in a soft blue velvet that feels warm to the touch. I settle near the window. The train lurches forward, not with a jolt, but with a determined heave, like a hiker shouldering a heavy pack before the first step of a long trail. We leave the flat ground almost immediately. The tracks curve sharply to the left, and the world tilts. The sensation is distinct. We are not just moving forward, we are being lifted. Gravity pulls gently at my back, pressing me deeper into the blue velvet. Below the window, the Hakone River rushes over gray boulders, its white foam visible for a moment before the trees swallow the view. The climb is steep, steeper than seems possible for steel wheels on steel rails. The engine hums a low, straining note, a vibration that travels up through the floorboards and into the soles of my shoes. We are moving through a tunnel of hydrangeas. Though the peak of their bloom has passed, the leaves are thick and verdant, brushing against the sides of the train with soft, rhythmical thumps. Then the train slows. The rhythm of the wheels deaccelerates until we come to a complete, suspended halt. We have not reached a station. We are in the middle of the forest, perched on a precarious slope. This is the switchback. The grade is too steep for a turn, so the train must zigzag its way up the mountain face. Outside, the driver steps out of the front cab. I watch him walk along the narrow gravel path beside the track, his gloved hands swinging by his sides. He walks the length of the train, disappears, and re-enters the cab at the other end. The tail of the train has become the head. We begin to move again, this time in the opposite direction, climbing a new section of track that zags upward across the slope. It is here, in the quiet tension of the climb, that I hear it. It starts as a faint hiss, rhythmic and wet. TSSSH. TSSSH. I lean closer to the glass. Beneath the carriage, hidden near the wheels, are the water tanks. This is the friction control to prevent the steel wheels from grinding and screeching against the tight curves of the mountain rails. The train bleeds water onto the tracks. The sound is mesmerizing. It is the sound of the train cooling its own path. As we grind around a sharp, climbing bend, the water sprays against the iron rail. The metal sings a low, harmonic note, dampened instantly by the spray. It is a conversation between water and steel. The hiss rises and falls with the curvature of the track. It creates a cooling, auditory layer over the mechanical growl of the engine. I close my eyes and listen to the spray. It sounds like a sudden, heavy rain focused entirely on the wheels. A wash of coolness in the humid heat of the ascent. We arrive at Tanasawa Station. The doors open, letting in the sound of a cicada chorus, so loud it vibrates in the chest. I step out. The platform is narrow, squeezed between the rock face of the mountain and the drop-off into the gorge. There is no town here, only the station and a wooden bridge spanning the ravine. I hand my ticket to the attendant and walk out toward the road. From here, the journey shifts. To reach the village of Harajuku, I leave the rails behind and find the path. The transition from the mechanical rhythm of the train to the organic rhythm of the walk is gradual. The road narrows. The asphalt gives way to packed earth and patches of old stone. I adjust the strap of my bag, feeling the weight settle on my shoulder, and begin to walk. The forest here is a cathedral. The trees are Japanese cypress and cedar, their trunks growing straight and true. Pillars supporting a canopy that filters the sunlight into a diffuse, underwater green. The air is still. There is no wind to rustle the branches, only the stillness of deep growth. I find a pace that suits the incline. My boots make a dull, soft sound on the damp soil. Thud, step, thud, step. I let my mind empty. There is nothing to analyze here, no signs to read, no schedules to check. There is only the repetition of movement. The path curves gently to the right, following the contour of the slope. A fern frond brushes against my denim pant leg with a dry scratch. I step over a root that has broken through the surface of the path, its bark worn smooth by decades of other travelers. The grade increases slightly. I can feel the change in the muscles of my calves. My breath deepens, matching the rhythm of my stride. In for 3 steps, out for 3 steps. The air tastes of pine needles and damp decay. A rich, fertile sweetness that coats the back of the throat. To my left, a moss-covered bank rises to eye level. The moss is not a single uniform carpet, but a landscape of its own. There are patches of bright, neon green, tufts of darker, forest velvet, and tiny, star-shaped growths that look like miniature palm trees. Water drips from somewhere above, landing on the moss with irregular, tiny splashes. I stop for a moment to watch a single droplet navigate the tip of a fern. It swells, heavy and silver, holding on for a second longer than gravity should allow, before falling silently into the earth. I continue. The act of walking becomes the only reality. The concerns of the morning, the logistics of the train, the anticipation of the destination, all of it dissolves into the simple mechanics of the body in motion. My left foot lifts, swings, plants. My right foot lifts, swings, plants. The repetition is a lullaby. The light in the forest remains constant, a twilight gray-green that reveals no passage of time. It could be noon, it could be evening. The trees stand in silent judgment, their bark specifically textured, rough vertical ridges running up toward the unseen sky. I run my hand along the trunk of a cedar as I pass. The wood is cool and damp, the bark flaking slightly under my fingertips. For a long time, there is no sound but my own breathing and the crunch of soil. The path levels out, widening into a small clearing before diving back into the timber. I walk through a patch of mist that hangs suspended in the air, a ghost of a cloud caught in the branches. The mist is cold on my face, condensing in tiny beads on my eyelashes. I blink them away. Step, breath, step, breath. The solitude is absolute. In this valley of trees, I am a singular point of movement in a world of stillness. The rhythm of the walk induces a trance state, where the boundary between the walker and the path begins to blur. I am not walking on the mountain. I am part of the mountain's slow, breathing existence. Ahead, the density of the trees begins to break. The light shifts from green to a brighter, pearlescent white. The smell of wood smoke drifts down the path, distinct and sharp, cutting through the dampness. I emerge from the tree line into the village of Harajuku. This is the home of Yosukezeku, the art of wooden marquetry. The village feels less like a town and more like a collection of workshops clinging to the roadside. I walk past open doors, peering into the dim interiors. The air here is different. It smells of sawdust, toasted glue, and the resinous tang of shaved timber. I stop in front of a low building with a sliding wooden door. The sign is hand-carved, the characters interlocking in a geometric pattern. I slide the door open and step inside. The workshop is quiet, save for a repetitive, scraping sound. The room is lined with shelves, every inch covered in blocks of wood, shavings, and finished boxes. But it is the wood itself that commands attention. It is not painted. The colors, purple heart, white dogwood, gray Japanese cucumber tree, yellow mulberry are natural. They have been cut into precise triangles, diamonds, and trapezoids, then glued together to form solid logs of intricate kaleidoscope patterns. An artisan sits on a cushion on the raised floor. He is an older man, wearing a dark blue work coat. He does not look up as I enter. He is focused entirely on the block of wood clamped before him. The block is a masterpiece of geometry, a honeycomb pattern of dark and light woods bonded into a single solid mass. He holds a large tool in his hands. It is a plain Hakone, but this one is wide and heavy. This is the Zuku plane. I stand still, letting the door slide shut behind me, and listen. He positions the blade at the far edge of the patterned block. He adjusts his grip, his knuckles whitening slightly. Then he pulls. Shhhhweep. The sound is distinct. It is not a scrape, it is a slice. It is the sound of steel parting wood fibers with absolute precision. A sheet of wood, no thicker than a piece of paper, curls up from the block. It rises like a ribbon, maintaining the perfect integrity of the geometric pattern. He sets the sheet aside and returns the plane to the start. Shhhhweep. I watch the rhythm. His body rocks back with the pull. The sound is dry and clean, a whisper of friction that ends in a soft snap as the shaving separates from the block. It is the sound of patience. There is no machine hum here, only the man, the blade, and the wood. The shaving is called Zuku. It is paper-thin, flexible, and translucent. Yet it carries the full complexity of the pattern. He stacks the new sheet on a pile of others. They settle with a soft hush, like dry leaves falling. I move closer, careful not to disturb the air. The smell of the fresh shavings is intoxicating, spicy, and dry. I watch the blade catch the light. The artisan's breathing is synced with the stroke of the plane. He exhales on the pull. Shhhhweep. Inhale on the return. The repetition is hypnotic. Each stroke reveals the same pattern, yet each sheet is new. It is a process of revealing what is already there, layer by microscopic layer. I watch the curl of the wood, the way it spirals up over the metal of the blade, a delicate scroll of tortoiseshell geometry born from a solid log. For a long time, I just stand there, absorbed by the sound. The friction of the plane creates a sense of warmth in the room. The world outside, the train, the rain, the mountain climb fades away, leaving only this small, rhythmic act of creation. Eventually, I step back. I purchase a small box, its surface covered in the hemp leaf pattern, smooth as glass. The artisan nods, a silent acknowledgement, and returns to his plane. I step back out into the village. The light has changed. The pearlescent white of the afternoon has deepened into the blue-gray of early twilight. The air is cooler now, the humidity condensing into a light mist that hovers over the road. I walk toward the edge of the village, where the road curves back toward the river. There is a small bridge here, an arch of stone over the water. I stop at the center and lean against the railing. Below, the water rushes over the rocks, dark and steady. I look up toward the west, toward where the great mountain should be. The clouds are low and heavy, a ceiling of gray concealing the peak. There is no view of the summit today. There is only the imagination of it, the knowledge of the massive, dormant weight sitting silently behind the veil of moisture. I listen to the river. I listen to the wind moving through the high branches of the cedars. The sound of the Zuku plain still echoes faintly in my mind, a rhythmic whisper of wood and steel. My legs feel heavy, a good, grounded tiredness that speaks of the climb. I let my gaze drift downstream, watching the water disappear into the gathering dark. The day does not end with a grand revelation, but with a slow, steady dimming of the light, settling softly over the valley like a shaving of wood curling into rest. The morning mist clings to the valley floor in Harajuku, white and heavy like spun cotton. It is not a weather that hurries. It is a stillness that asks to be matched. I lace my boots, feeling the stiff leather resist the warmth of my hands, and step out into the air that tastes of damp earth and pine needles. Today is for the ascent. Today is for the stones. The village falls behind not with a sudden departure, but by fading into the greenery. The modern asphalt road peels away, leaving only the beginning of the Ishidatami, the stone-paved path that has carried millions of sandals and boots for centuries. The stones are irregular, smooth-topped river rocks and quarried slabs, wrestled into the earth by hands long since turned to dust. They glisten with the dew of the early hour. My first few steps are tentative. The ground here does not offer the flat predictability of a city sidewalk. It demands attention. The right foot seeks a flat surface on a granite slab. The left foot negotiates a ridge of hardened mud between two cobblestones. A rhythm begins to form, a conversation between the soles of my boots and the history beneath them. Ahead, the light changes. The open sky is abruptly replaced by a soaring, living ceiling. I have entered the Cedar Avenue. These are not merely trees. They are the guardians of the Takado, planted 400 years ago to shelter travelers from the summer sun and the winter snows. Their trunks are immense, columns of dark, reddish-brown bark that rise straight and true, vanishing into a canopy so dense it creates a twilight at noon. The air temperature drops instantly. It is cooler here, preserved in the shade. I pause to look up, tilting my head back until the muscles in my neck pull tight. The branches interlock high above, forming a complex weave of needles and wood. Sunlight tries to penetrate this barrier. It pushes through the gaps in the canopy, creating a shadow lattice on the path below. Beams of light, thin and focused, strike the mossy ground like spotlights. As the wind shifts the high branches, the lattice moves. The patterns on the stones shift and slide, a slow-motion kaleidoscope of gold and gray. I step into one of these pools of light. It is fleetingly warm against my cheek before the wind moves the leaves and the shadow returns. The silence here is profound. It is not an empty silence, but a full one, cushioned by the thick bark and the carpet of fallen needles that lines the edges of the stone path. The road begins to climb in earnest. This is the slope leading toward the pass, a steady, relentless incline that requires a shifting of gears in the body. I shorten my stride. I lean forward slightly, letting gravity help rather than hinder. For a long time, there is only the climbing. This section of the road is a corridor of time where the mind ceases to jump from thought to thought and settles instead into the singular reality of motion. The surroundings blur into a wash of deep greens and browns. The visual details soften. What remains is the sensation of the journey itself. My breath finds a cadence. In for 2 steps, out for 2 steps. The air is rich with oxygen and the scent of damp wood. It fills the lungs completely, a cool rush that feels cleansing. The stones underfoot vary endlessly. Some are large and flat, offering a momentary platform of stability. Others are rounded and slick, requiring the ankle to adjust, the calf muscle to engage. There is a small slip, a quick correction, and the rhythm resumes. The sound of the boots is a dull thud against the earth, a sharper clip against the rock. Thud, clip, thud, clip. It is a hypnotic percussion. I walk. The path winds upward, curving around the contours of the mountain. Sometimes the bank on the right side rises high, covered in ferns that drip with moisture. Sometimes the left side falls away into a ravine where water can be heard rushing over rocks, unseen but present. The act of walking takes over. It is no longer a means to get somewhere. It is the entire state of being. The weight of the pack settles onto the hips. The shoulders relax. There is no need to look at a map. There is only the path, defined by the borders of the ancient trees. Step, lift, place, push. The repetition is soothing. It smooths out the edges of the morning. It creates a space where there is nothing to solve, nothing to plan. There is only the next stone. A small bird flits across the path, a quick dart of brown feathers, silent and fast. It vanishes into the undergrowth without a sound. I do not stop. The momentum carries me forward. The incline steepens slightly. The breath deepens in response. It is a hydraulic relationship. The body demands, the air provides. There is a heat building under the layers of clothing now, a comfortable warmth generated by the engine of the muscles. I notice the texture of the ground changing in subtle ways. Here, the stones are covered in a fine layer of green dust. Here, the roots of the cedars have pushed up between the pavers, creating natural steps, gnarled and woody knots that offer a different kind of traction. Minutes stretch. They could be 10 minutes or an hour. The canopy creates a perpetual afternoon. The light does not seem to change. The shadows lengthen and contract with the breeze, but the quality of the illumination remains constant, a soft, filtered diffusion that eliminates harsh edges. The mind drifts into the valley of the walk. Thoughts of the destination fade. Thoughts of the origin fade. There is just the gray stone with the vein of quartz running through it. There is just the patch of darker earth where the rain has gathered. There is just the sound of my own respiration, steady as a tide. One foot in front of the other. The simple, ancient mechanics of travel. I focus on the sound of the wind high above. It sounds like the ocean. It rushes through the millions of needles in the cedar tops, a continuous, hushing roar that seems miles away, distinct from the stillness down here on the road. It is a roof of sound, separating the traveler from the sky. My hand brushes against the rough bark of a cedar as I pass. It feels dry and fibrous, warm to the touch. It is a brief contact, a handshake with the century, and then I am past it, moving to the next. The grade levels out for a moment, offering a respite. The legs appreciate the flatness. The stride lengthens. The stones here are larger, grander, perhaps laid with more care for a section of the road that was once more heavily trafficked. The moss here is thicker, cushioning the footfalls, muffling the sound of the boots, until I am moving almost silently through the tunnel of trees. There is a peace in this monotony. It is a cleaning of the slate. The rhythmic motion acts as a loom, weaving the scattered threads of attention into a single, strong chord. Step, breathe. Step, breathe. Gradually, the terrain begins to shift again. The path narrows. The trees seem to lean in closer. I see a change in the light ahead, a breaking of the pattern. We are approaching the slope known as Wari Ishizaka. The name rests on the tongue like a polished pebble. The slope of the split stone. The legend speaks of a samurai and a sword, a moment of vengeance that cleaved rock. But the stone itself does not need the story to be commanding. I see it sitting by the side of the path. It is a massive boulder, dark and brooding, covered in a velvet coat of moss. And true to its name, it is split. A clean, sharp fracture runs directly through its center, separating the rock into two distinct halves that have remained frozen in their separation for hundreds of years. I slow my pace and come to a halt. The cessation of movement feels sudden. The silence of the forest rushes in to fill the space where the sound of my footsteps used to be. I approach the stone. It radiates a quiet coldness, a stored memory of the winter. I remove my glove. The air bites at my exposed skin, crisp and invigorating. I reach out. My fingertips brush the surface of the boulder. The moss is incredibly soft, a stark contrast to the hardness of the granite beneath. It is deep and dense, holding moisture like a sponge. I trace the line of the split. The edge is not jagged. It is surprisingly smooth, as if the rock simply decided to part ways with itself. I run my hand down the fissure. Inside the crack, where the sun never reaches, the stone is black and damp. A small fern has taken root in the darkness of the cleft. A tiny, bright green flag of life growing from the heart of the broken rock. I crouch down to look closer. The moss is not a single uniform green. It is a landscape of its own. There are patches of emerald, streaks of lime, and tiny, russet-colored sporophytes standing up like miniature trees. It is a forest within a forest, existing entirely on the surface of this one legend. I press my palm flat against the unsplit portion of the rock. It feels solid, immovable. It has watched the daimyo processions, the messengers running with letters, the farmers carrying crops, and now me. It absorbs the heat from my hand without giving anything back. Standing up, I wipe the dampness from my fingers. The lattice of shadow has shifted again. The sun is lower now, angling through the cedar trunks more sharply. The beams of light are more golden, less white. The day is aging. I look up the path. The slope continues, curving out of sight. Somewhere up there is the pass. Somewhere beyond that is the lake, and the view I have traveled for. But the urge to rush has evaporated. The walk through the cedars has tempered the need for arrival. I adjust the straps of my pack. The leather creaks, a familiar, comforting sound. I leave the split stone behind, letting it recede into the greenery. I do not look back. It belongs to the road, fixed in its place, while I am the moving variable. The path widens slightly. The trees are still massive, but the undergrowth thins. I can see further into the woodland on either side. The light is turning amber, catching the floating dust motes and turning them into suspended gold. I find a place where the bank rises to form a natural bench, covered in dry leaves. I decide to sit for a moment, not to rest from exhaustion, but to witness the transition of the light. I settle onto the ground. The earth is firm. I stretch my legs out, the boots resting on the stones. The forest breathes around me. A breeze stirs the high canopy, a long, sighing exhalation that travels from the top of the mountain down to the valley. I watch a single leaf detach itself from a branch high above. It falls slowly, spiraling, catching the light, disappearing into the shadow, catching the light again. It takes a long time to reach the ground. When it finally lands, it makes no sound. I sit and watch the shadows lengthen. The lattice on the ground stretches, the shapes becoming elongated and strange. The gaps of light become fewer, the pools of shade merging into a twilight ocean. The air grows colder. It is the distinct chill of evening in the mountains, a clean, sharp drop in temperature that signals the end of the active day. I think of the mountain that awaits. Fuji. It is out there, perhaps hidden by the clouds, perhaps clear. I cannot see it from this deep channel of trees. I do not need to see it yet. The anticipation is a presence in itself, a companion sitting beside me on the bank. I close my eyes for a moment. I can still feel the rhythm of the stones in my legs. The thud, the clip, the shift of weight, the sensation of the walk continues even when the body is still. I open my eyes. The colors of the forest are deepening. The greens are becoming black. The browns are becoming gray. The world is drawing in on itself, preparing for the quiet of the night. I will walk a little further, just until the light fails completely. I will find the inn, the hot water, the tatami. But for now, I remain here, in the company of the cedars and the stones. The wind moves through the branches one more time, a soft, rushing sound that sounds like a wave retreating from the shore. I listen to it fade. I listen until there is nothing left but the silence and the dimming light. The road waits. The shadows hold their breath. The stillness is complete. The morning air in Sengokuhara carries a distinct weight, a heavy, cool dampness that clings to the sleeves of my coat. It is not an unpleasant heaviness, but rather a grounding one, like a thick wool blanket pulled up to the chin. I leave the small inn while the rest of the town is still deciding whether or not to wake up. The sky is a pale, washed-out gray, the color of river stones, promising that the sun is somewhere behind the veil, waiting to burn through. My boots make a soft, crunching sound on the gravel path leading toward Chonji Temple. It is quiet here, not the silence of a vacuum, but the living silence of a forest that has inhaled and is holding its breath. The temple grounds are not manicured to perfection like the famous gardens of Kyoto. They are wilder, nestled into the slope of the hill, where the bamboo grows thick and the shadows stretch long. I have come here for the faces, scattered across the hillside, hidden behind ferns, and resting beneath the dripping branches of cedar trees are the raken. These are the stone disciples, hundreds of them, carved with a humanity that feels startlingly present in this quiet grove. I step off the main flagstones and onto the soft earth, moving slowly among them. The first one I encounter is knee-high, crouched low to the ground. Moss has claimed the left shoulder and part of the ear, a patch of velvet green against the gray rock. The expression is not one of holy detachment, but of suppressed mirth. The eyes are crinkled, the mouth curving up at the corners, as if holding back a joke told centuries ago. I move to the next. This one sits with knees pulled to his chest, chin resting on his arms. He looks tired, or perhaps just comfortable, watching the seasons change. I begin to count them, not with numbers, but with moments of attention. A third figure leans back, mouth open in a wide, toothy laugh, eyebrows raised high. A spider has spun a delicate, symmetrical web between the statue's raised hand and his cheek. Dewdrops cling to the silk threads, shivering slightly in the morning draft. I crouch down to look closer. The stone is pitted and weathered, coarse to the touch, yet the curve of the smile is soft. Further up the slope, the trees grow denser. The light filtering through is green and aqueous. Here, a statue sits with a sake cup raised to the sky, an expression of pure, unadulterated contentment etched into the granite. Beside him, another figure weeps, face buried in large stone hands. It is a silent theater of human emotion, frozen in the forest. I linger here for a long time, watching the way the moisture in the air collects on the stone foreheads, running down like sweat or tears. There is no need to hurry. The faces have waited here for years. They will wait for me to pass. Leaving the temple feels like waking from a lucid dream. The transition to the lake is a gradual descent. The gray sky begins to tear open, revealing patches of hard, brilliant blue. By the time I reach the shores of Lake Ashi, the sun has claimed the day. The water is a deep, impossible indigo. It looks cold and vast, a caldera lake held in the cupped hands of the mountains. I board the boat that will take me across. It is a large vessel, steady in the water. The engine engages with a low, vibrating hum that travels up through the soles of my shoes, a rhythmic thrum that signals departure. We drift away from the pier. The shore recedes, becoming a line of green and gray. I find a spot near the railing on the starboard side. The wind out here is sharper, cleaner. It smells of deep water and pine resin. I watch the wake of the boat, a churning path of white foam that unfurls behind us, healing itself back into blue as we distance ourselves from the land. My eyes scan the shoreline. I am looking for the red gate. It appears slowly against the backdrop of the forest. The Haiwano Torii. It stands in the water, its bright vermilion lacquer striking against the dark surface of the lake, and the shadowy green of the cryptomeria trees behind it. It is massive, anchored in the lake bed, a gateway between the spirit world and the human world. As we draw parallel to it, I look down near the waterline. The guidebooks speak of the grand view, the postcard image, but I am looking for the detail. There, just above the lapping waves, on the stone base of the gate, is the small, dark rectangle of the plaque. It is almost invisible from a distance, a secret kept by the water. The boat moves past, and the angle changes. The sun catches the wet stone of the base, making it shine like obsidian. The plaque is swallowed by the shadow of the pillar, disappearing as if it were never there. I turn my face forward. The wind presses against my skin, cool and constant. The rhythm of the boat becomes the rhythm of my breath. Rise and fall, rise and fall. The boat docks at the northern shore. The final leg of the day is a climb. I need to reach the observatory at Bent Nohana. The path leads away from the water into the trees. I adjust the strap of my bag and begin to walk. The ground here is different. It is packed earth, interlaced with the gnarled, exposed roots of ancient cedars. They wind across the trail like the veins of the mountain, polished smooth by decades of footsteps. I step over a thick root, placing my boot on the flat dirt beyond. Step, step, step. The incline is gentle but persistent. The sounds of the lake, the distant boat engines, the voices of other travelers fade away, absorbed by the density of the forest. All that remains is the sound of my own movement, the scuff of rubber on soil, the rustle of fabric, the intake of breath. I focus entirely on the rhythm of the ascent. Left foot, the ground is firm. Right foot, a twig snaps under my heel. Left foot, the air is cooler in the shade. The trees here are tall, their trunks straight and vertical, creating a colonnade that stretches endlessly in every direction. The bark is fibrous and reddish brown, peeling in long, vertical strips. I reach out and brush my hand against a trunk as I pass. It feels dry and rough, dusty against my fingertips. The path curves to the right, following the contour of the slope. I keep my eyes on the ground a few yards ahead. There is a meditative quality to watching the terrain flow beneath me. A patch of dried leaves, brown and brittle. A stone half buried, its surface speckled with gray lichen. A patch of bare earth, dark and damp. Step, step, step. There is no need to look up. The destination is fixed. The path is singular. I let my mind empty out, pouring its contents into the forest floor. There are no decisions to be made here, only the simple physics of lifting a foot and placing it down. The light changes as the canopy thickens. It becomes dim, a twilight in the middle of the day. The air smells of decomposing leaves and rich, fertile soil. It is the scent of slow time. I can hear the wind moving through the upper branches, a high, rushing sound like a distant river. But down here, the air is still. My breathing settles into a steady cadence. In for 3 steps, out for 3 steps. The repetition is hypnotic. It washes away the complexity of the world below. There is only the slope. There is only the muscle working against gravity. There is only the next route to step over. I pass a large boulder covered entirely in thick green moss. It looks soft, inviting. I do not stop, but I slow my pace, letting my eyes trace the contours of the rock. A fern grows from a crack in the top, its fronds unfurling in a perfect spiral. It is a small universe of its own, existing in the quiet dark. Step, step, step. The path begins to steepen slightly. My calves tighten. I lean forward, shifting my center of gravity. The rhythm does not break, it only deepens. The physical effort is a tether, keeping me present, keeping me here in the woods. I am not thinking about the view at the top. I am not thinking about the boat ride. I am just walking. A bird calls out, a sharp 2-note whistle that echoes through the trunks. Then silence returns. The silence is heavy, pressing in against my ears. It is a comfortable weight. It feels protective. The trail widens. The roots recede, replaced by a carpet of pine needles that softens every step. It feels like walking on a thick rug. The sound of my boots changes from a crunch to a hush. The trees begin to thin out. The columns of wood space themselves further apart, allowing shafts of white light to pierce the gloom. I can see the sky again. It is no longer the gray of the morning, but a bright, hard white. The air grows warmer as the sun reaches the ground. I keep moving, the momentum carrying me forward. The rhythm of the walk has become internal, a pulse that beats in time with my heart. Step, step, step. I reach a level stretch. The muscles in my legs relax. The breathing slows. The transition from the enclosed tunnel of the forest to the open air is gradual. The light grows intensity. The smell of earth is replaced by the smell of open space, ozone, and wind. I stop. I am at the edge of the observatory. The ground drops away. The trees fall back. I lift my head. There is no fanfare, no sudden burst of music. There is only the mountain. Mount Fuji dominates the horizon, filling the sky with a presence that feels more like a planetary body than a geological feature. It is the porcelain peak. The cone is symmetrical, terrifyingly perfect, rising from a base of hazy blue foothills. The snowcap is brilliant white, blinding in the afternoon sun. It looks painted on, too crisp to be real. The edges defined against the blue sky with razor-sharp clarity. I walk to the railing and lean against it. The metal is cold. Below, the lake is a sheet of hammered silver, reflecting the sky. But my eyes are drawn upward, always upward. The mountain demands it. It sits in a silence of its own making, a silence that swallows the wind and the birds and the distant hum of the world. I trace the slope with my eyes, the long, sweeping curve that starts high in the thin atmosphere and cascades down, widening, spreading, rooting itself into the earth. It is a line of infinite grace. The clouds are beginning to gather around the waist of the mountain. Wisps of white vapor, thin as gauze, drifting slowly across the dark volcanic rock. They do not obscure the peak, they frame it. They emphasize its height, floating miles above the ground I stand on. I stand there for a long time. The sun begins its slow descent, shifting the light. The white snow begins to take on a hue of softest gold, then a pale, bruised violet. The shadows in the valleys of the foothills lengthen, turning from blue to purple to black. The air temperature drops. I pull my coat tighter. I do not want to leave, but the light is fading. The mountain is changing, withdrawing into the coming night. The sharp details of the snowcap are softening, blurring into the twilight. I take one last look. The peak is now a silhouette, a dark triangle cut out of a darkening sky. It feels permanent and fleeting all at once. I close my eyes, capturing the image on the inside of my eyelids, a negative of white and blue. I turn away from the rail, letting the image dissolve into the quiet dark of my mind. The path back down is waiting, unseen in the dusk, ready to lead me home.